You're listening to the Paracasual Destiny Podcast, Episode 3. Hi, welcome to the Paracasual Destiny Podcast, Episode 3. I'm with Salliebug.
Hello.
Yep, she's here. She's dialing in remotely this episode. And of course, I'm Sooltime. And we're here to talk about Destiny from a casual player's perspective. Salliebug, what have you been up to?
Well, I was actually thinking about this week, and as much as I've been playing, I kind of feel a little bit like a fraud calling myself a casual player.
Why don't you tell the good listeners why that is?
Well, so I don't know exactly what made me do that, because I know what it was. You and I decided that we had kind of met kind of all the milestones that we wanted to meet for the season of Arrivals.
Right.
And so then we started backtracking a little bit and said, okay, well, and since Bungie so nicely extended the season so that we could play it at a more casual pace and take a breath, it's like, okay, now we can start picking up on all this content that has been kind of lurking in the background that we've kind of ignored for a long period of time.
That's right.
And so one of the things that we did was we decided, because we like to do the collecting thing, and it's not that we go collecting and find it on our own.
We're collectors, yep.
But we call up other people who have found all the different lore that's hidden around the
shout outs to all the great content providers who make those videos. There's countless numbers of them.
Isn't it like, it's just like almost every other one where like, we would have never found this.
Right.
Some of them are kind of obvious.
It boggles the mind. Oh my God. Some of the locations where Bungie hides these things. I mean, I think like 1 out of 10 of them are like, how did anybody ever find this? You know, I think there's people who are just career explorers in the world, in the the environment, and when new content comes out and there's suspected hidden objects, people go Easter egg hunting and find these things in the most bizarre. Some of them are real jumping puzzles to get to as well. Right.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I love it because it gets you and I to one, it puts me out of my comfort zone of having to like practice jumping, and I think that's a good thing for me anyway. I like it because it also has us explore the environments beyond just playing the game, because sometimes you can get kind of narrow visioned and say, okay, I'm doing this and I'm doing it for this particular purpose, and you forget to look at these beautiful environments that Bungie has created for us to just explore. And it is an open world game, so because of it being an open world game, you've got this this opportunity to go and explore all these.
It's a real
special place.
I almost want to say it's that concept that is built into many video games of just opening a chest or finding something that's hidden. It's been around a long time, but man, does it work. I mean, it is, at least for me, it's one of the most satisfying.
Some people like it, right? It's in a lot of different games, so obviously more than just a few people like that part, like doing that.
Yeah.
So, you and I have done it in the past, so we've done it, in bits and pieces. And I think we discovered that via another website called braytech.org that so nicely kind of takes your character and puts this is what you've done versus this is what you haven't done. So shout out to them.
Yes, an excellent
And
resource, right?
we were looking at the collections and saying, oh, hey, we've got two sets of collections of lore that we haven't done, that if we do, we could get the Chronicler seal. Or is that what it's called? Chronicler?
Yeah, Chronicler. The title.
And the title and the seal, and then the title that's associated with that seal.
Right.
So
yeah.
it was like, well, since we don't necessarily have to do any of this, after your kind of the basic weekly content, and we have this extra time on our hands, why don't we do this? And we did that over 2 days, would you say?
Yeah, was it 2 or 3 days? But we both got the title. And getting a title is not easy for a casual player. I mean, a lot of these titles, for Chronicler, it's the most difficult stumbling block was the Dreaming City, visiting, Marasov, and having to wait like the whole cycle, the whole freaking 3-week cycle that place is on. Crazy time gated.
And I thought for sure they were going to open that up, but I don't know if they have or not. Like we got that a few months ago. But I would say that is one of the things that, because it doesn't necessarily, I feel like it's a little more accessible because it doesn't require as much skill,
right,
in terms of like being able to, like, it's not a time trial, and it's not you have to do this flawless for Chronicler. So we felt like that was one that was more within our reach. Like there's others, I look at the other seals and it's like, there's no way this is in my reach, there's no way I can do it. And I realize it's from a casual player's point of view, none of those seals, like you don't have to go after any of those seals, but some of them I think are more designed for like a casual player.
You think
and
so?
Someone who can and just like, if you just play the game.
I can only think of one that I would call the casual player's title, and that would be Wayfarer. I remember Wayfarer just came without even trying to do it, just by playing the game.
Well, we still kind of had to look it up. I think there were a few things.
Yeah.
The Dreaming City one was kind of tough, but then I think once we got Wayfarer, we're like, oh, we got a seal. That's kind of cool. What else is there? And I think we saw that the Dreaming City one was the next, a next one that was relatively close.
Right.
To being able to get, but some of those jumping puzzles that we did, you and I went hunting, and you had to be ascendant.
Yes.
And find those jumping puzzles.
That was fun.
And that was super fun, super hard. Like there was one I remember spending hours just trying to pull off, because I've stated in the past, am jumping challenged. So
right.
If you don't like jumping and don't like jumping puzzles, I mean, the thing is that I don't like jumping and don't like jumping puzzles, so I'm not even really sure why I torture myself with that.
Well, I think I would have more sympathy with you if you weren't maining a hunter, which is the hardest jumping character in the game.
Yeah, it's definitely a different jumping mechanic.
So you got a new title, chronicler. And full disclosure, yeah, we consider ourselves casual players, but casual is sort of code for somebody who has other obligations, doesn't have a lot of time to get on the game, but it could also mean you're new to the game, so you're kind of casual in that respect. I think it also can mean that your video games aren't really your natural skill set. You weren't born to have the skill set to rise to the top 10%, even top 50% of the players skill-wise, but you enjoy video games and you enjoy trying to go in and do your best and learn and improve, but you weren't born with the skill set. Or you're like us, you're so old that your reflexes that you had 20 years ago are just not the same, especially when it comes to PvP and things like that, where you really need to be able to react very quickly. What's in your brain has to translate to what you're doing on your controller or mouse and keyboard very, very quickly. Right. And multitasking is another thing. Right. You're flying through a map, but also looking at the radar at the same time, and also listening to sounds, and there's a lot of multitasking. It amazes me, some of these streamers who can do all of that and check their phone and see what's going on in chat all at the same time. It's just phenomenal, but I don't have that in me at all. Freshest Heart says she still doesn't have Wayfarer. I just saw that. It's not hard to get. So, no, it's not too hard, but
again, it's not too hard, but it is one of those things you kind of have to take a look at the list and just kind of check things off as you go along. And I think you and I kind of matches our it matches our mindset and the way we like to kind of take on certain tasks, is to like kind of have a checklist. It's like, okay, what are we going to do today? We like this game. We don't necessarily like PvP. We don't want to go. We tend to be a little tentative about playing with what the community so graciously calls blueberries, in that we don't. Sometimes I'm embarrassed. It's my own.
It's like your fear of letting them down. Is that?
Yeah.
That's gone away to a good degree recently, only because I think we're kind of lubed up and we have not been playing at a casual pace. Once again, we're educators, so we have the summer off, which affords us much more time to invest in our beloved video game. So, yeah... But still, that feeling does not go away that you're going to let somebody else down. And maybe that comes from sort of an old school way of viewing interactions in general on the internet. I feel like our generation interacts differently with people, or maybe it's just us. Who knows? I mean, we generally don't. Yeah. We generally don't engage in sort of the Twitterverse and TikTok and Facebook and all those things on outside of a sort of a familial level. I mean, we use it in addition to our personal relationships, certainly not a replacement for, and certainly not to a level of engagement that would afford us the luxury of commenting with a degree of anonymity or behind a screen name or something like that. I guess what I'm trying to say is every blueberry we run into in Destiny is another person. It's not just like an opponent, Right. So it's like we will never leave a game early. Like even if something comes up, we will we'll let the
Right.
we'll let the
try,
kitchen
we try
flood
to,
before we leave a match early, because we feel like we owe it to the other players, right? We're probably a little bit too
right.
nice in that respect, but anyway.
Yeah, that just, but that being said, one of the things we did was a little sneaky. One of the things we did this week was a little sneaky
Are
and
you sure you want to
probably,
divulge that on a public podcast?
I don't know if I do or not.
Oh, go for it. Hold on a second. We need a
um,
sound. We need our first sound effect for the podcast for this.
oh no.
Okay, go ahead. Divulge your secret.
All right. So, back to what we were talking about is getting seals. I noticed that I was actually pretty close to getting dredging, and I have no idea how that is even possible. But I think uh, um, when
Yes, this is bizarre.
When Gambit first came out, I played it a lot. I enjoyed it, and I felt like, oh well, this is a PvP I can get my head around because I don't have to do the invading, and I don't have to go and kill other guardians, and I don't have to necessarily kill the guardians as they come in. I can just go run and hide, or to do my part, and I can just kill all the things. And I can pick up or I can let other people kill all the things, and I can go invisible and collect all the motes and go put them in the center bank.
Right.
So I played it a lot when it first came out before it kind of went through its kind of troublesome time. And got harder, I don't know, or maybe I just got burned out on it. You know what happened was when the season with the Drifter came out. Was it Season of the Drifter? Is that what it was called?
I don't think so.
Do you remember?
Or was it? No, it was called something else, wasn't it?
Season of the Drifter?
Maybe it was Season of the Drifter.
It might have been Season of the Drifter. I got overwhelmed. I want to say this right now. It was, and maybe it was because it happened during a time when I was in the thrust of school, and so I couldn't. It's like, wow, this is like more work for me, and I didn't have the extra time to invest, but I couldn't get my head around what I needed to do and how to do it and all of that. And you were just now like spending time with the Reckoning and getting all the sets and kind of showing me the ropes, and that's something that content we're doing like now. And you think about, wow, that's content from like how long ago? I don't know how long that season was, but anyway, long story short,
Yeah,
I did.
It was a while ago.
But outside of all of that, so I didn't really do a whole lot with the Season of the Drifter, but just looking at the seals, I noticed that for whatever they've done with whatever to get the Dredgen seal, I was really close. And the two things that I hadn't done was to get the seal was to kill 4 invaders all at the same. No, kill the whole other team all in one invasion.
Right.
And of course I hadn't done that because that's not my skill set.
Right.
So I pulled out an easy button, got a truth, got into a Gambit Prime map, waited until they were trying to kill their take down their primeval, and just shot a rocket at all of them at the same time. And that doesn't always work. It took several games, and by several I mean probably 20, maybe even more,
Right.
just to get. And you had to do that 3 times, and so yeah, that was tough. And the other tough one, which I think at this point is because of the state of the game and the way people play the game now, is almost impossible is killing another guardian out of their super.
Right. Yeah.
And
I think I read somewhere I was telling you that somebody reset their infamy and had out of that all those games to reset their infamy, they ran into that situation like 3 times and only was successful once. So got one of those light versus light. And I think you have to do it 3 times. Is that right? Hello? It seems like we've lost Salliebug. Salliebug, you may be able to hear me. I can't hear you. Can you hear me now? Either Salliebug's frozen up or I think she's rejoining the Discord. Hello, Sally, can you hear me?
Hello.
There you are.
Yes, I had to. I think my Discord crashed.
Yes, it did. But you're back. Welcome back.
But I'm back
to the podcast.
So, yeah, you were saying that you read somewhere that someone had attempted it over.
Yeah, and so the opportunities are less and less, and I don't know if that's because the meta has changed since that particular triumph was first implemented.
That's kind of what I would say. I would say the way people play that game.
What was it? Sleeper Simulant. You could just take somebody out with, very easily. Like the hitbox was really huge and everything. Then they nerfed that. Remember? They nerfed weapons that could easily do what that particular triumph is being asked to do. And so if you're not kind of skilled with a revoker, or even have a revoker for that matter, or I just don't think there are a lot of people who go in and invade with their super. No, they stopped doing it, especially with like a roaming super. You can get shut down pretty fast.
They go in with a weapon and kill you with a weapon, whether it be like what I said, with like truth. You get a tracking rocket and just find you across the map and shoot that over. Or if you happen to be skilled with a sniper.
Right.
Or whatnot. It's just people don't invade with their super very often. And what I remember is when Gambit first came out is, I have my super, I'm going to go over to the other team and invade now. Like that was a thing, and that's what people did. People saved their super to go and use it against the opposing team. And I feel like now when you play the game, or when you play Gambit, at least from my observation in the last week or so, is if you have your super, you save it to take down the primeval or to kill all the ads and get as many motes as possible. It's not used. So the opportunities to get that kill another guardian out of their super is very, it's
rare.
1 out of 20 games.
Yeah.
Right? It's
rare.
Very rare. It's very rare.
But in all fairness, you can go to the other side and do
super anymore. And you can't go to the you can't go to the other side. I mean, you could go to the other side and maybe but you could try to.
Well, here's the thing. I went to the other side, and how do you shut somebody out of their Nova Bomb? You know what I mean? It's like they're gonna have.
They're gonna do Blade Barrage or Nova Bomb. They're not gonna, or maybe Thunder Crash, whatever it's called, Chaos Reach.
Right.
They're going to do those things. They're not, if they're trying to get you.
So how did you cheat the system eventually?
So I had done, 7 or 8 out of 10, I guess, way back when I was playing Gambit a lot when it first came out. So I had done quite a few of it, but then I just I played and played and played, and I was like, this isn't happening. So you and I figured out, it's like, look, we live in the same house, so we play in the same region, we have a general idea of how matchmaking works. So we got on our voice channel. We play in the same house but in different rooms, and so we got on our separate Xboxes, our separate consoles, loaded up the Gambit screen, and said, okay, we're going to launch, but not as a fire team, and say we're going to launch it at the same time and get into a match together, and hopefully they'll put us on opposite teams.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And we played, I think, the first 2 or 3 games, they matched us together, right?
Yeah.
Like, we almost got matched together every time.
Almost every time, yeah.
Sense, right?
Yeah.
I think there was a couple of times when they didn't, where we just kind of backed out of the matchmaking because we could tell we weren't in the same one.
Yeah.
Because you just look at the countdown screen and you'd say, oh, I'm at 6 out of 8, and I'd only be at 2 out of 8, so we just back out. We just cancel it.
Right.
But then we could tell the countdown was almost identical, and then we'd go in, and then it was like, okay, I'm either on your side and we did that. And I think the first 2 or 3 games we were on the same side, so we just kind of played it through, played the games. And then the last game, and then finally a game came up. And we did this in did we do it in regular Gambit? I think we did. Because the opportunities would be greater, right? Because the game's longer. The opportunity to get your super back was longer. So we did it in a regular Gambit match. And so we finally got into a match where we were on opposite teams, and you so graciously said, okay, I'll wait till I have my super.
It was cheating. Let's call it what it is. It's kind of cheating the system. It's cheese so or cheating.
I'll let you know when I have my super.
So,
and then you let me know when you had it, and then I would invade and then go hide somewhere on the map away from all the other blueberries so they wouldn't come and get me. And you would come over, and so your blueberries would kind of see, oh, he's going over there with his super, and then I would just kill you.
Yeah, you're laughing, but I'm wondering if you're...
I feel bad.
Well, I think you're...
Put this. Your team actually won that game. So, even though we did that twice in one game. So, but I did take the opportunities away from the rest of my blueberries.
Yeah. I don't know.
I do feel bad because it's not something that we tend to do. But I didn't know how. I mean, it's just like, it was so close, and I really did try to do this without technically cheesing it, or technically cheating. At least I'm being honest about it. I feel like it needs to have a little asterisk beside it.
Well, I was just gonna say the seal is slightly tarnished, just ever so slightly. I mean, it's not as shimmery as it would be if you got it through the way it's intended, correct? Right. Yeah.
But in my defense, which we led up to that for 30 minutes, was it's almost impossible to do, especially with someone I mean, I get it, my skill set's not that great, but also just the opportunity to do it.
Well, in times of uncertainty, it's good when you can turn to a video game for some self-esteem boost or comfort, and that's kind of the way I look at it. Sometimes you could go for a bowl of ice cream, or you could just have your teammate match into a Gambit game and get you your dredging title, right? Salliebug, you there?
I'm still here.
You went quiet.
His heart just says you gotta play dirty to be a dredging. So it's like, well, I mean, I guess if you look at it that way.
Yeah, you're over modulating a little bit. I don't know if you can turn your volume down in
Yeah, I
In
can certainly.
Discord, your output volume, maybe. I don't know if you can do that from your end or what, but it seems like you're overmodulating a little
Yeah,
bit.
is that any better? No, I'm just
Overmodulation.
probably talking too loud, which
Well,
is
yeah, it's the peaks, but it's no big
yeah,
deal. It's no
yeah.
biggie.
Okay.
It ain't no biggie.
So
Let's
yeah,
see.
so that's
So that's your tarnished dredging seal story. I
that
think with the conclusion of that, it might be time for a little bit of a coffee break. I am going to just go out for just a moment here. It's coffee break time here at the Paracasual Destiny Podcast. Stay tuned.
that's funny. I'm not gonna go get another cup of coffee, so I will stay here and try to entertain while he's going to get a cup of coffee. So, for those of you who are listening live,
All
who
right,
has had
we
a
are
chance
back.
to,
Salliebug, are you still there?
I was still talking, so I
Oh,
was getting
okay.
ready to ask the chat and you, but I already know your answer because we did it together.
Okay.
Who watched the deep dive into
Oh my
the Prophecy
gosh.
Dungeon?
Oh, so beautiful. A wonderful thing that they do. They used to call them ride-alongs back in the day, where
Right.
the devs would get together and go through the content and talk about everything from a design and ideas point of view, and they show sort of storyboard or bare bones development ideas, and what do they call it, gray box, where they show sort of the early builds of the environment or the mechanics, testing out the mechanics test of the environment. And oh my god, I love that stuff. And of course, you know me, I'm an audio guy, so that I could listen to that audio dude talk all day long about the sounds in Destiny, because I think Destiny, out of any of the games I've played, has the most layered, nuanced, engaging sounds of any video game I've ever played, with the exception perhaps of Superman on the Atari 2600.
And the thing is like when they do these deep dives, and the thing that kind of struck me when I watched it, and if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend. There's a link to it in the on the Bungie.
We'll put a link to it in our podcast description as well.
Yeah, put a link to it because it is so fascinating, especially if you like kind of like the behind the scenes types of you can watch any content creator go and do the actual dungeon, but to hear it from the developer's point of view. And one of the things that it was fascinating for them talking about how they were going to use the dark and light and how they were going to work that out. But the other thing that I didn't notice, but they brought up as they were talking about it, was how it's a 9 based dungeon, right?
Right.
And the 9 have those symbols of the circle, the square, and the triangle, and how as you progress through, each encounter has that same theme. So the first encounter has that circular theme, and then the second encounter has the square theme. You're like in that cube room where you're like twirling around, and them talking about how to make that mechanic work was absolutely fascinating as well. And then you get into the triangles and the pyramids as you're going down Ribbon Road. It was just like, wow,
it's not
it was
something
so crazy. It's like,
I wish I was able to pick those things out. And here's a question for you: when you're doing that sort of content and you're going through the prophecy, maybe the 4th, 5th, 6th, maybe even the 10th time, do you notice stuff like that, or is it that your subconscious is picking up on those things, sort of your psyche, that's affecting your sort of your whole input system and the way you feel about it? Because I think they hit it out of the park with that dungeon, with that prophecy. It's unanimously loved by everyone. And
Right. Everybody who's
yeah,
given it an attempt, and I think it's accessible as well. Like it's not necessarily like I like the fact that in that especially like the boss fight that I don't does it have like a enrage slash wipe mechanic at the end, or does it just like if it takes you 8 times to go in and kill ads and then get to the boss fight and do some damage on him, it takes you that long. If it takes you that long, it takes you that long. And so I like that. I feel like it is accessible. It's hard, but it's accessible for, like, say, players like me.
right.
And um, and so hard, but doable with with a fire team. I'm not sure it's something. I mean, I'm not a player that tries to solo material. I'm not into those types of challenges. Um, so again, bringing up the seals and
I'm a solo
triumphs,
wannabe.
like, those are triumphs that I don't even really have the desire to try, because that would just, for me, it'd be kind of futile and very frustrating. So I don't attempt those, but I know that you do like to take on those challenges. They take you a long time, but I remember you spending a long time with Shattered Throne saying, I am going to solo this dungeon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you were
It's
determined.
much easier
I
to
think
do
it
now
took you,
than it was
it
back
took you
then.
I think it was last summer. That was like last summer, your content, or the summer before, whenever it came out. It's like, I'm gonna do this. And you would just like wake up and try that ogre encounter again.
Yeah.
With a different loadout. So I know you like those challenges. I personally don't, so I stay away from that.
Yeah, you can't be bothered with that sort of thing. You're too busy trying to get titles in a sort of cheesy fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
at that
guilty.
point,
Guilty as charged. Now, is it okay? I mean, maybe there's a every time there's a cheese that comes up, or a shortcut, or you always have to ask yourself. Some of them, there's a gray area. It's like, well, did they put that there on purpose for us to discover eventually a shortcut way of doing, or is this certainly not intended by the developers and it circumvents their desire for you to do something?
I think we find that out in how quickly they develop a patch for it. Like, there's a cheese for something, and within a couple of weeks, they're already trying to develop a patch for it.
Right.
Sometimes they just shut down. Like, for instance, an exotic. They're just saying, okay, this exotic piece has been inactivated because it's not working properly. So there are times,
right? It's
when there are cheeses that players find that they just say, nope, this breaks the game, we're going to shut it down. Or if it's a cheese that they kind of like are so unintended that they don't want players to do. Similar to the farming cheese, right? The dungeon, no, not the dungeon, the Forges farming cheese.
AFK?
Mm-hmm.
See, now you're going from cheese to exploit.
Well, exploit, yeah, but there are other cheeses.
Is it the big question is it cheese, or is it just clever strategy?
Yeah, so
or is it exploit? It's that gray areas between all of those: cheese, exploit, clever strategy. But as a casual player, I think you want to take advantage of some shortcuts because so much is in the game. So much of the rewards in the game are stepping stones. Like Anarchy, I feel, is a stepping stone to getting more clears in a activity that gives me rewards. That's another stepping stone to doing other things and having fun and an enriched experience. So as a casual player, you're constantly looking at that question of, is this something I want to do? It could save me a week. It could save me 10 hours, you know? So, like, for instance, I'm, as you know, I'm going back and taking advantage of the summertime to revisit unfinished content from previous years and seasons. And one of the things I'm doing is trying to do as much of the Black Armory that I never got to finish. I'd still like to finish the Niobe Labs puzzle. And I did recently finally get the obsidian thing that supercharges Ada 1 to give her that glowy effect. And that was just a matter of doing the first part of the puzzle, the Niobe Labs puzzle, and also getting all the armor together, and then going in and doing each of the forges in full armor, and so on and so forth. Anyway, long story short, Black Armory, I started looking, hey, I'm getting all this stuff done. Maybe I should go for the blacksmith. And then one of the things came up, you have to do these special bounties that appear after turning in so many dailies. You get these sort of super bounties from her. And one of them was simply just charging up the forges by throwing the batteries. And I was like, 50 of them, right? You do 50. Yep. Oh, man, I can throw 50 charges. I can do that. And I can help the blueberries out. I can even go in, matchmake with this thing and have fun and feel...
You could be working on weapons.
Right, because there's let's be honest, there's a lot of bounties that... cause you to be less than an ideal team player in the activity, and forces your hand to stray from the objective, thus screwing over maybe whoever you're teamed up with, especially anonymous blueberries. But this was really good. I go in, throw my 50 charges, man, get this done. Well, it turns out not so easy. It turns out that it was just participating in a completely charged forge thing. So you know how you have two waves? You charge it up once with 20, then you get a second wave, you charge it up again, and then you get the boss. So it just counted those. So you could get only 2 out of the 50 done per forge, per successfully ignited forge.
So throwing the last charge to like the 20th? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, as long as you're participating, I think it gives it to you. So each fully ignited forge gives you 2 out of the 50. So when you're talking about...
So it's not throwing charges at all. It's just charge
It's
up.
Charging up. Yeah, the way the flavor text is worded, I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. Then I noticed, like, wait a minute, I threw more than 2. I threw 20.
50 times. That means 25 games.
25 games. And you're talking about 25 times.
25 complete games that get
so I'm looking at it yesterday. So I get on and I was like, geez, I wonder if there's a cheese for this, because it expires in a couple days, so I'd like to get it done. So I look it up, and of course, all the Reddit suggestions are just dismantle it so you get another one. Don't do that one. It takes too long.
Right.
Yeah. So I went in, and I was halfway...
games, I mean, they do last. How long do those super ones last? They're like 2 weeks? They're a little
depending on who you get matched with,
one,
it can go anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. So I'm going to say around 7 minutes average. So 7 times 25, do the math, right?
How long do those super bounties last?
Oh, they're like 10 days. Yeah, they're more than a week.
That's still a lot for a casual player.
It wasn't going to happen. And it expires in the next couple days. Forget it. Yeah.
If it's 10 game, if it's 10 minutes, let's just say 10 minutes per game if you include the matchmaking in between.
Right.
And that's you're 10. 10 times 25 is 250. And we've talked about this in the past. That's 250 minutes. 250 minutes is too long. That's asking someone to spend 6 hours doing nothing but playing the Forge. And what if 6 hours is all you have for that 10 days? That is not a value of your time. That
No.
there's certain things that they put out there that it's just like Bungie doesn't value the amount of time that you have and being able to spend on this game. And yes, you and I right now in our time right now have a lot more time to spend on the game.
Right.
But we know from a casual's perspective, and life is going to be like our perspective, say come September and October, like our ability to even like do this podcast and what we're going to talk about is probably going to be very different.
It'll be all over now, baby blue for us.
Right. So it's like well, we got on and spent like a half an hour trying to get our flashpoint, and that was about it.
That's why we get our digs in now while we can.
But anyway, so yeah, we've talked about the not valuing the time, and that's crazy. That 25, that's
it's
6
too
hours
much. It's overboard.
And for a casual player, for sure. So go ahead and continue on. I want to hear your story.
Well, that's it. I dismantled it, and now I'm just going back to the daily bounties.
Yeah. Oh, you did dismantle it. That's
absolutely.
Really a cheese or an exploit.
Because if you have it, you can't get another one. If it's in your inventory, you can only have one of those at a time. One of those super bounties.
But don't those drop like they get the drop rate is crazy low. So if you dismantle that, now you're like.
No, it's based on how many dailies you do. So, and the daily bounties aren't bad at all from Ada.
And you can do and are there repeatable daily bounties?
No, I don't think so. I think that content is too old for daily bounties. I'm thinking. Yeah. So.
That's crazy though. That's super silly though. Like the 6 hours worth of forges. Did they even think that through? That's crazy. That's a lot of forging. I guess like for people who just like really love to forge
and it's also the other triumphs are like 500 kills with Izanagi's burden in the Izanagi's forge. That's crazy too. And they have one for Jotun in whatever forge that's associated with, and so on and so forth. And I think it's Le Monarch in one of them. And
which
so
seal is this, Neil? This is the
Blacksmith.
Is the one with Scourge.
Well,
right?
I'm not. Well, hold on a second. There's triumphs, right? But then there's the seals, which have particular triumphs, and I don't think those large amount of kills are associated with the blacksmith. The other, the prohibitive thing with the blacksmith seal is, for us, or for me anyway, are doing all the raid challenges. I think you have to go flawless in Scourge of the Past and complete some of the other challenges to get the seal.
Right. For me, and I'm
just very time consuming.
I'm a little taken back about that one because for me, I feel like a seal should be based on what your personal, what you can do. So like running flawless, doing a flawless dungeon solo, that shows that you're that skilled a player and that you can attempt that and do it well. But the fact that this one particular one kind of counts on you having a team that can also play very well. I don't think I agree with it.
Yeah, well,
I don't agree with like trying to get a seal that requires, because you're talking about like, okay, you get in with a raid team, you go in with me, and you have to do a flawless run, and I die. because I can't do that sparrow race for the life of me. I think I've gotten through all the way once
Right.
in the times that I've run it, and
Yeah.
or do the jumping without dying, and that's
I mean,
not fair to you in terms of that means that's just telling you, okay, now I have to take this player that I like to play with and boot them.
No, I agree. I agree with you that
I can't.
yeah, they have to go to orbit or whatever to get through that part to do the flawless. I get, and that's cheese. So there's at least
cheese and an exploit. Or
it's not really an exploit.
Do it legit flawless, then you just say, okay, now I have to play with people I don't actually really want to play with, or that I don't know. Go into an LFG. Or
I think with this stuff you have to take the good with the bad, honestly, because there's and you also have to, as a casual player, you have to accept there are rewards and activities that I will not ever do, or I will be shut out from doing those things. And the first one that comes to my mind is trials. We do not play trials because I think the only something went out. I think Ghost put on our Discord that you could actually get rewards now if you do 10 games, win or lose. But if you just want to go in and get pounced over and over again, I'd rather spend my time doling out small rice cakes on the moon, honestly.
Right.
Then so there comes a time where, like, you have to remind yourself, hey, I want to do this for fun and not as a grind just to get an emblem or just to get this certain weapon. I think it's okay for the developers to force us outside of our comfort zones to, like I was talking about before, to get the stepping stones, to connect the dots and to make the game more fun and enriching in the long run. And it's okay to go through some frustration or get a little salty. I think that's okay to an extent, right? You don't want to alienate the player so that they are not having fun overall in the game. So,
well, the way seals work, I mean, it's not like, again, from a casual perspective, you don't really need to go after a seal.
What's it give you? It's just it's total ego prestige stuff, but it's also something that's there to challenge yourself with as well.
But like
so it's
you said, or like I mentioned earlier on in the podcast, you and I tend to be kind of checklist type of players anyway, and so it's kind of nice to just look at a checklist, look at oh, here's a collection of triumphs that you could get together. It for me, it narrows things down, right? And then I look at them and say, okay, this one is out of my reach. I'm not even interested in trying that. Versus, okay, it's challenging for me to go after all of these, do all this jumping, but I'm willing to go through that. So you can just pick and choose which ones based on the things that you like. Now, I know there are other players and there's content creators that I've watched who just go after every single triumph, right? They go after every single triumph. They go after every single seal.
The completionists.
And they're skilled enough to do that. And it's a challenge, and I think there's parts of it that are very challenging for them. But more power to them for getting that done. But
absolutely,
that's not me. But it's nice to have a few things that I feel that are in my reach that I can do, even if it does take a little bit of dredge and sneaky to do.
Dredge and sneakiness. That should be the title of this podcast, for sure.
So, is there anything else? There's some patch notes. I mean, most of the This Week at Bungie.
Have you been paying attention to the chat, by the way? That's your job, isn't it?
I have been. It's been kind of keeping tabs with it.
Yeah, well, bring
So
it up. I'm not always on the chat. I'm doing other things, but definitely when you see something, bring it up, so
yeah,
that bring my attention to it.
yeah. Well, one person, Fractious Heart had said only one person has to go flawless in the dungeon, and I was just saying yes for the dungeon, but for the blacksmith title specifically, you have to have a flawless scourge run, and I think it's the whole team has to be.
Right, but you can
I
kick the
think there's,
bad
and I don't
bad
know if
sparrow
there's an
riders to orbit for that part. Is my understanding.
right, but again, that's a cheese and an exploit, not as intended for what they
I
said in
don't
the
know.
title.
I don't
I don't.
know. It's
I
like,
don't think they expected you to just send everybody to orbit and only have two people
well,
go
there's
through
plenty of
and hit
mechanics.
those.
There's plenty of raid mechanics that allow for you to put your two best whatevers forward doing a certain
And I
task.
don't know if
And
there's
why
a.
not
I
that?
don't
Why
know.
not put your two best sparrow riders to the task of getting through that, while the other people just sit in a well off to the side or go to orbit or whatever, right?
I
I
agree with
they
you
didn't
that
patch it,
that's a
so
thing. That's a way of getting through it, but
I think it's a
I
cheese,
don't. I think it's a cheese, and in addition to
not an
that,
exploit.
I do take exception to a seal that's a personal title that requires you to have teammates to also go flawless, and that's kind of where
There is places in the game like that.
right.
Yeah, I
But
can't think of anything right now, but we've been up
and I
against
was
that.
wondering because we had just started to dabble in doing the Crown of Sorrow. We have not completed that raid yet. We've attempted it a couple of times. We attempted it earlier this week, and that wasn't going to happen. We just weren't in the right mindset to learn it. But I know that there's a mechanic that you can do to go flawless in that one as well, but I don't know if there's a title that's associated with it. There's probably a triumph associated with it, but I don't know if there's a title that's associated with it.
Yeah, I
I don't
know.
mind there being a triumph associated with it. It's the title that I feel is a personal achievement thing. That's where I have a problem.
Right.
Personally, I think if it's a personal title, you should be able to achieve it on your own. Maybe with the help of your, with teammates, because obviously you most of the time you're playing in a fire team, or not most of the time, but there are many things that you do that you're in a fire team. But
Yeah.
so
I think the balance between there's three modes basically, right? There's solo, hopping into
Yep.
Destiny by yourself and doing stuff and interacting with the environment, and sometimes you get sucked into a little blueberry co-op in a public event or something like that. Then you can matchmake in solo with other players that you don't know, and then there's going in as a fire team, those activities. And I feel like over the past 4 or 5 years in Destiny 2. How long's Destiny 2 been out now? We're coming up on year 4.
Yeah, I think this is 4 year. We're finishing up year 4.
No, year 3. I think we're finishing up. We'll go into year 4 this fall,
Right?
and I'm pretty sure.
Maybe.
I don't know. Somebody can verify that in
I
chat.
I
Time's
thought, yeah.
relative. So, yeah,
Destiny
I think
2
they've done a
came
good
out
job
in
of balancing out those 3 modes,
2017,
don't
so-
you? Yeah, so it makes sense we'll be going into year 4. So don't you think they've done a pretty good job of balancing out so that solo players can have some fun with the game? From a casual perspective, we don't play the game so much. Well, we do as of recently. And you know what? You get to that point to where you just need a break from it, and we call it a breakstiny. You go play another game. I've been sort of dabbling with Red Dead Redemption, the original 360, a backward compatible version for the Xbox One. Having fun with that. And I've also been doing some achievements, and we were talking about treasure hunting in video games with AC4, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, which I love. I just love that game.
Right.
And it gives you, just a different, and then, of course, real life stuff, too. You've got to mix it up. You just can't burn yourself out. So when you hear people complaining about there's nothing to do for solo players, or solo players are locked out of this or that activity, I feel like there's
actually,
enough.
That's funny because I just said Fractious Heart had put and said, I think it's okay that some titles are locked out to high team achievement because Destiny isn't really a solo game. And I just said it's a good point because I think at its core, Destiny wants us to play with others. They want it to be
definitely. I think the whole
they want it to be like they don't want people. They have given
absolutely
some they dabble in it. You've got the PvP, and you can go in as a PvP solo player. I think they finally put the Rumble playlist in, so if people only want to play Rumble and they don't want to be on a team, they
right.
can just
but I think they've made concessions to people who complain, I don't have any friends. There's been a long-standing level of complaints in forums and feedback that nope, I can't do that because I play solo. Well, I think you can play solo and have fun. I do it all the time in this game. I'll go in solo and have some fun. But I think at the core of the game, Fractious Heart's absolutely right. The core of the game is about community and playing with others and interacting and communication. And I almost think sometimes that Bungie has this sort of, you see it in their charity and they have this really core philosophy going on over there of making it all about community and using the medium, the video game medium, especially how it is now with multiplayer and broadband. They're using this platform to really try to create a community, and so it's definitely at the core of the philosophy.
Right, which brings us to another topic that I don't know if we want to save for next week or another time, but the opportunities to find friends and to do LFG or to gather a fire team together in game is one thing to matchmake. It's another to, hey, I'm looking to do this activity and I'm trying to get flawless and I'm looking for a group to do it. It would be nice if that was more accessible just when you hop on. Like you could just go and like put your name in or fill out a form. Like if you're doing this Scourge one, go down to Ada 1 and that there be a place where you could have like an LFG-ish type thing where you could find other players who are looking to do the same thing you're doing.
Right.
I mean, we've done LFG a little bit. We dabbled a little bit with it. I know we did it for, it's actually it wasn't really LFG, but it was someone just finding me in the tower and asking me if I would help. But it's how our core raid team got together.
Right.
Someone finding me and saying,
our clan, if you will.
You want to do King's Fall with us? And I'm like, I'm not sure you want me. I'm not that good, but I'll play with you if you want. So, yeah. And Fractious Heart said guided games never made it out of beta, did it? And it's just like they had a good idea. It just kind of it missed the mark. But I think a lot of vanilla Destiny 2 missed the mark, and instead when they were busy trying to revamp, and they did Forsaken and all the other things. I think they put that. I think they put the LFG on hold because there were other things that they really needed to focus on.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to criticize and second guess, and hindsight's always 20/20 on decisions that you make. And
Right.
I remember in Destiny 1 for the longest time, people were like, "Why do you have to go to an app or the web to read the lore? Why don't they have it in game?" And so I remember the big thing was they put it in game, and now people are complaining that they can't go and read it outside of the game. So the poor
Right.
they can't win. It's
Well, I don't know. I mean, yeah.
and raid mechanics
in the game, but for a game that wants you to like it's really guiding you to, or it's really trying to get you to play with others. It's
right.
Like, it's not a solo. They don't want you to have a solo experience. They're not saying you can't have a solo
I wouldn't go
experience.
that far. I wouldn't go that far.
You can't.
Right.
But how many times do you go in, besides a lost sector, how many opportunities do you have to play where there are not blueberries around?
Lost sector.
Strikes. You're with others.
No, you're with
open world.
Right, you're with others.
Strikes and dungeons. I mean, lost sectors and dungeons and raids are the three things. Like the things that are not match-made. Things that aren't match-made activities are the things that you go in. You have to be. So the bulk of the bulk of what you do is with others, and those non-matchmaking activities like the dungeon and the raids aren't designed for you to do solo.
Actually they are. The dungeons, I would argue, are they're hitting up both notes. They're making
both notes.
They design them to be soloable. They actually design the dungeons to be for endgame. It's to be a solo activity for endgame, I think.
They're designed for it, but that doesn't mean that they're I don't know. Let's talk more about the raids.
And Nightfalls too. Nightfalls are also designed to solo. Because they, once you get up to a certain level, the matchmaking gets turned off. So you either go in a fire team, but you can go in solo. And
what are you talking about?
The Nightfalls.
Right.
Ordeal.
Yep, that's another one. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're designed to be.
They've
done
put
solo.
Challenges for they put challenges in for the solo players.
Right, it's almost like it's an added
skill.
challenge to do something do those solo, but they're
I
designed
still
for
feel
that.
Like the I'm gonna say 80% of the game is designed for you to be working cooperatively with others to complete a task.
Right, and raiding is just too. You can't do matchmaking in raiding because the mechanics are too complex. You definitely have to go in with friends who are patient with you.
The world who like the challenge and say, I'm going to figure out how to do this solo.
Right, after he's run it 100 times with his raid team, right? They run it when it comes out, and then they do it so that they can run the thing blind. Like Datto used to do blindfolded raids with somebody telling him what to do. But that's a whole different level of engagement with it.
Right, but on the other hand, the challenge for those higher end players is not really what I was talking about. It's really more how the design of a good portion of that material is for you to work cooperatively with others. And because of that, I feel like the opportunity to find other players to do that, it would be nice if it was a little easier and a little more accessible, that you didn't have to go to an outside app.
Right.
Even if it's a companion app, that you didn't have to do an outside app to find it. That if you were looking to complete a particular achievement or a particular triumph, or you just want to try Crown of Sorrow, but you only know 2 other players and you're looking for 3 others. And like I said, our core raid team, we play with because one of them accosted me in the tower in Destiny 1 and said, will you play Kingsfall with us? And you were out of town, and
I like how the whole Twitch has been a real good vehicle for raid help. You had like Dads of Destiny and Dames of Destiny and all those, and they would have Ragecation, and they would just have people who were new to the raid and walk them through it. And the entry point was through the Twitch chat. Can I join in and learn how to do this? Sure, yeah.
And I think there's still people who do that, but it's just a little different.
No, there's still people who do, raid. And I think that was the intent behind the guided games. Its implementation fell short. It still exists. I think you can still do it. Right? It's still in there.
I think so.
They haven't taken it out.
I'm just hoping that it's at least in their mind, so that when Beyond Light comes out, there are some increased opportunities to be able to talk with others.
Right.
I think we're going to have to call this,
all right.
kind of cut this off now.
Because you need another cup of coffee.
I do need another cup of coffee, and we've talked before that I am remotely. I am on a break with my family, and they are wanting to go out and do some activities that I would love to go out and do with them. So,
sounds good. Taking a break, Steny.
I'm going to say goodbye.
All right.
Thank you all for tuning in.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Thanks all that listened in. Appreciate it.
Would love any feedback anybody has. Yeah. And we'll see you all next week.
Yep. So I just want to say, if you want to get in touch with us, you can use the links below. You can find us on Twitter. You can send us an email. And I think this podcast is going out to most of the major distribution networks for podcasts. So your favorite, you can check us out. Except for iTunes, because I think they don't like us, or they're just very finicky when it comes.
Their vetting process is a little longer. That's all.
So you've been listening to episode 3 of the Paracasual Destiny Podcast. I'm Sooltime, joined with Salliebug, and we bid you farewell. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.